All right, thanks for staying up late with us. I'm Rich Walsh in for Bob Pompiani. Tonight we have a lot to talk about, and we have another all-star panel for you. From left to right on your screen, we got Andrew Fillipponi from The Fan, Paul Zeise from The Fan and the Post-Gazette, and Jason Mackey, the Pirates beat writer, also from the Post-Gazette. We're going to be talking about the Buccos here today, maybe touch on Pitt basketball and the Penguins, but we're going to start with the Steelers and their former head coach, Bill Cowher. He got the call to the hall last night, a special moment on TV, and you saw it right here on KDKA that he found out that he's going to be the first member of the 2020 Hall of Fame class. Now, I know a couple guys on this staff, maybe a couple guys on this panel right now, maybe one guy on this panel, maybe kind of disagrees with that, Paul.
Yeah, I do. I think he's very much like the same thing I said about Jerome Bettis and the same thing I said about Hines Ward. Very, very good. Not quite a Hall of Famer in my book, but of course, when you're going to nominate 20, what are they going to put in? 20 guys this year, which is absurd. I guess he is. I don't know. I talked about it last night, Richie. I mean, Tom Flores won 2 Super Bowls. Jimmy Johnson won 2 Super Bowls. So to me, Mike Shanahan won 2 Super Bowls. There's a lot of guys. To me, Bill Cowher is a really good coach, but he won 1 Super Bowl and he lost a lot of big games.
You know what, Pony? I think you can make a case for every one of those guys. 8 guys that were, 10 guys that were on that list. And I mean, any one you pick, any 2 you pick, I think you could be kind of okay with.
Well, I think Bill Cowher gets in under, maybe the Joe Gibbs rule, where even though he didn't win as many Super Bowls as Gibbs, he didn't have the great franchise quarterback. There's no Lombardi star, Belichick, Brady, Noel Bradshaw. And look at the guys he went to AFC championship games with. Neil O'Donnell a couple times, Cordell Stewart thrown in there, and Ben Roethlisberger when he was just at the beginning of his career before he developed into a Pro Bowl passer. So I think that is what makes Cowher's resume more impressive than the wins and losses. Guys, I've always said this. I think Cowher's resume is much more impressive than Mike Tomlin's. And all I heard last night was, well, if Cowher's in, well, then you got to rubber stamp Mike Tomlin. Well, Mike Tomlin had a great defense and a franchise quarterback his whole career, and he has the same number of Super Bowls, and he's gone to fewer AFC championship games.
Jason, do you agree with that?
I think he should be in, first off, but I also think it's funny that everything seems to revert back to Mike Tomlin. Like anything that happens, somebody wants to get upset.
I didn't start that. I mean,
no, I know you didn't, Andrew. I just think it's ironic. Well, I saw the same stuff that you did. It's just, let's judge Bill Cowher in his own right, and whether you agree with Paul or whether you don't, I happen to think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I think his regular season record, how many AFC championship games he went to, whether you agree or not, there's a sort of mystique of being that with the Steelers and sort of a bellwether franchise in the NFL. And he did it and was well known for it and maybe didn't have the greatest weapons, but it doesn't tie back to Mike Tomlin.
Paul, I want to know if you agree with this. I think that it pays to be nice to people. One guy who, is known to be gruff with the media, Tom Coughlin, who took an expansion team and went to the AFC Championship game in his second year and beat the undefeated Patriots. And, oh, by the way, his 2 Super Bowl titles. I don't think Coughlin's going to get in, or he's going to be made to wait. What is he, in his 70s now?
He should be in.
Right. And I think if we're just comparing strictly those 2 resumes, me personally, I like Coughlin's a little bit more.
Well, and I think the point about Mike Tomlin is that everybody wants to compare Mike Tomlin to Bill Cowher, and as Andrew pointed out, it's not fair. It's not the same comparison. And if you're going to do that, then you're just not being intellectually honest. You're being intellectually dishonest, because the bottom line is Mike Tomlin had, he had Ben Roethlisberger his entire career, which is a completely different thing than having to win with some of the jabronis that Bill Cowher.
I don't think Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Famer. Am I out of my mind in saying that? I know he hasn't had a losing season, so what?
He needs another Super Bowl. If he gets to another Super Bowl, he probably is.
All right, so the 2 guys that got in, the 2 coaches that'll get in this year, at least from that Centennial Committee, Bill Cowher surprised yesterday. Jimmy Johnson surprised today with it. And I think, Pony, I don't know if you agree with those 2 guys out of that list, but I think a lot had to do with it. Hey, not only are they good coaches, but they've been in the public eye for the last how many years? People know who they are.
And I think it does, in a way, open up a bit of a Pandora's box. I'll give you another name, a local guy. What separates it? Strict resume, wins, Super Bowls, playoff appearances. What separates Bill Cowher from Mike McCarthy, really? I mean, is there a big gulf there? And I don't think for a second, when I look at Mike McCarthy, I don't think Hall of Fame coach.
What about Mike Holmgren?
No,
almost
I don't
identical.
They're very similar.
And think it came down to one game, right? If the Seahawks win that Super Bowl and they beat the Steelers, Holmgren's in and Cowher isn't. So sometimes, and maybe the same thing with Bettis. It's amazing sometimes how one game can change resumes and legacies forever.
All right, Jason, what about the other guys that are on this Centennial list and a couple other Steelers that can get in? I mean, Donnie Shell is one of the other senior players. They got to take, I forget how many guys that they're taking, but is it 10 guys, I think? And Donnie Shell's one of those finalists. Do you think he gets in? And then if you look at the modern era guys, I think Troy Polamalu's a shoo-in. What about Alan Faneca?
I think they should all get in. Anybody that has any tie whatsoever to the Pittsburgh Steelers better darn well get in. No, I'm just kidding. On legit merit, I would like to see all of them get in. I do think I would have a tough time seeing Troy Polamalu not make it in here. He's the only one I sort of feel passionately about, or feel strongly about, I should say. I mean, how is he not a first? To me, he should be in there. He has the resume, whether you look at it, numbers, high-profile games, what he's produced in big moments. To me, Troy's a Hall of Famer.
All right, enough of the Hall of Fame. Let's switch subjects a little bit.
I was going to say this.
Okay.
Faneca has a better resume than the other two linemen. But the thing about Baselli is he's a tackle, which might carry a little bit more weight. But Faneca should be in along with Troy Polamalu. Donnie Shell had 51 interceptions. That's pretty impressive, although the safety position is a little different now than it was back then. But go ahead.
All right, I want to switch subjects and keep it with the Steelers, kind of. We've seen the 4 games that were played here. What are the Steelers missing, Pony? I mean, what are they not? What are they doing wrong right now after watching these teams?
It's a great question. I mean, I know for me, one of the resounding things that have stood out to me the last 2 days, and you could say, well, one guy's got Patrick Mahomes and the Steelers had Devlin Hodges, but I think we see the difference between offensive minds. You see what Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy have done, and it was not just with Patrick Mahomes. They also allowed for Alex Smith's career to take off. And then Kyle Shanahan, who's had a bevy of quarterbacks, whether it's Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, and now Jimmy Garoppolo, in what they do offensively. And then I look at the Steelers with Coach Randy and think, okay, he is the right quarterback for Ben Roethlisberger, but he's not the right quarterback for the Steelers. They put a first-round grade on Mason Rudolph, and when he was paired with Coach Randy, he didn't look like a first-round quarterback to me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the other thing is that we look at a running back like Derrick Henry, and it's incredible. Everybody on the planet knew that they were going to run the football. And guess what? They were able to do it.
But I thought you weren't allowed to do that, Paul. All the Steelers
exactly.
beat reporters said when they put an extra guy in the box, you're not allowed to run it.
Well, that's because, it's that role Steeler beat reporters have. They must protect the home team. But anyway, the bottom line, and no matter what, it's amazing. Today, people are running on and on about John Harbaugh, and his playoff losses because it's an indirect way to defend Mike Tomlin. But anyway, point I'm trying to make is, like Andrew said, you can do a lot of things offensively regardless of who you have. It's nice to have talented players, but to me, what we've seen in these playoffs is you need to run the ball competently in order to win, and the Steelers don't seem to value that.
No, and I look at what happens when you lose a franchise quarterback, or not even a franchise quarterback, but just a starting quarterback, and have to turn to somebody else. Look at the job Ryan Tannehill did, not even throwing for 100 yards, and they did that because of what these two guys said. They're able to run the ball. The offensive line is able to block people. They're able to push people around. I look at that and think that the Steelers' offensive line wasn't good enough in that regard this past season, and I'd like to see them get better. I mean, they're not going to get a Derrick Henry.
Well, you know what they could do, Richie? Maybe they could sign that David Baker to play guard. Did you see that guy with power? My goodness.
Do his eyebrows come with?
He looks like he could be a road grader.
Well, you definitely need a running back, and I think, one thing with the Steelers, if they would have won a couple games down the stretch, Buffalo, New York Jets, Tennessee might not even be in this position to have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So, all right, if you'd like to enjoy the game from the comfort of your couch, we're going to love this Expressway at Cochran.com. You can buy a car from your couch, too. Expressway lets you complete some, most, or all of the buying process online to spend less time or no time in the showroom. That's right. They even offer home delivery at no extra charge. Buy a car your way right now with Expressway at Cochran.com. We'll be right back.
Number One Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by Number One Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.